Hello, Maverick traders, and welcome out to your currency recap. This is Sankater, and let's break down today's market price action. It's a Tuesday, October the 24th, so let's get into it. So we'll be reviewing what's really going on in the markets as we are seeing a lot of back and forth taking place. So we'll be taking a look at broad tape, taking a look at bond market, taking a look at the currency baskets, and talk about the best trading setups in the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's get into it.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional stock and option traders. Maverick Trading is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional trader for Maverick, click the Apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
So looking at the markets overall, we are seeing the equity markets in a relief rally mode. So we did close on a weaker note on a Friday, but Monday and Tuesday, markets are sort of catching a bit here. For shorter term, it's positive, but overall, the trend still looks pretty weak. Now, the bond yields, which has been the big story for the last few weeks, they are sort of pulling back here. Again, the bond yields affects the equities, and it does affect the US dollar. Today, the dollar was firm, so we're seeing dollar actually holding on to its consolidation pattern that we have been in for the last few weeks. So dollar stays firm, but the yields did pull back. So we'll see how things sort of turn out in the next 24 hours. Looking at the numbers today, what we need to look for is where's the relative strength of weakness. We are seeing Aussie being the relatively strong currency, and we are seeing the European currencies being weak. Again, they are weak because we had a weaker PMI came out overnight. So we are seeing a lot of movement taking place off this economic data that comes out. And this is why it's important to play these news events. That's where we are seeing big movements here. So euro and pound were the worst one. And we are seeing the dollar and yen being a little bit more flat to slightly up. So the dollar, again, still remains on this sideways range. We didn't see much movement in the Swiss franc, something we can pay attention to in the next 24 hours. The Canadian dollar is holding steady. Again, we have the Bank of Canada tomorrow, so we'll see how the Canadian dollar moves off that. And we are seeing the Kiwi just lagging the Aussie. So we have these currencies that are showing relative strength, but we do have some economic data coming out in the next 24 hours that we need to pay close attention to, for especially if you're looking for a continuation pattern. Now, let's take a look at the numbers in the equities. The S&P up, and so is the World Stock Index, up close to 1%, 0.75. So overall, a decent day today. The bond markets were almost flat. The cryptos were slightly down, and we are seeing the gold markets being flat as well. So not a whole lot of activity in the middle there. And take a look at the U.S. oil is down 2.74%. So overall, risk-on environment in the shorter term. Taking a look at the crypto markets, we are seeing relative strength in Bitcoin, and that's the one that's really running off some speculation on upcoming ETFs being offered. And again, that's really where the Bitcoin is actually doing really well. But outside of that, you can see that it's not the broader market move. It's very specific to Bitcoin. So that's something we need to pay attention to. Now, looking at the market outlook, well, our scores remains at a -3, which means we are below the 20, we are below the 50-day moving average, and they're sloping downwards. We highlighted that there is a very important support level at around 4,200. You can see that we haven't tested or breached lower. So this is still a bear rally pattern for me. Overall, I think if you are a trend trader, you need to be patient in these sort of movements where we get these rallies in the shorter term. But as long as we stay below these levels, we are still on a slippery slope in the equity markets. Now, looking at the data, you can see that we are seeing a lot of data, especially today and tomorrow. There's a lot to go through. So overnight, we had the European numbers that came out. And we saw some weakness coming off those numbers. But then take a look at the U.S. number. The flash manufacturing PMI and services PMI were stronger. So the U.S. data continues to outperform. We are above the 50 mark, which is, again, is good for the equities, but it's also good for the dollar. I mean, I think the weaker number is really what's going to put a dent in the bond markets, or it's going to put a dent in the dollar. But so far, all the data has been supporting it. So tonight we have the Aussie CPI, and remember how these CPI numbers are coming out. They're coming out either at expectation or below expectation. So we haven't really seen these CPI numbers really causing a big move on the upside in currencies. I mean, if you take a look at the Kiwi CPI, last week was below expectation. Kiwi sold off. We saw the Canadian CPI below expectation. Canadian dollar sold off. So as we go into this number, I think we have to be on the cautious side instead of being on the bullish side. Even though we have a good bullish price action, we might see a bit of a dip at first and see where the price action goes. And then tomorrow we have the Bank of Canada rate statement. Again, they're not expected to raise rates by staying at 5% here. So I think that's already priced into the Canadian dollar. What's going to move the Canadian dollar is the press conference. I would be looking for some sort of hawkishness or dovishness signs. That's really where the cat's going to move, but I think this still could be a hawkish hold instead of a dovish hold. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens tomorrow. That's again coming out at 10 a.m. So these Aussie and Canadian dollar is the big focus in the next 24 hours here. So let's take a look at currency analysis, take a look at the velocity scores, and pair those currencies accordingly. Now, looking at the score system here, you can see we are pretty much spread out across the board. So the CAD, the pound, and the euro, they're showing relative weakness. We are seeing the Kiwi and the dollar as a +1, but really the big movement is in the Aussie. We have the Swiss franc and the yen. It's kind of in the middle here. So the question is, can we expect continuation from pound and euro to the downside? And if that's the case, then should we pair it against the Aussie and the Kiwi? So let's take a look at the chart setup.
Do you want to be a professional trader? Maverick Currencies is the oldest US-based Forex and crypto prop trading company that will pay you for trading with our capital. Trade our capital and keep 70 to 80% of the profits. We are looking for traders just like you that are hardworking and motivated. Click the apply link on the top right of this video to see if you have what it takes. That link takes you to a 4-minute video that explains the trader position available, and you read a list of FAQs that answer pretty much all the basic questions you have at this point. After watching the video and reading the FAQs, if you're interested, fill out an application, then you'll watch the full-length recruiting video, and then schedule an interview with one of our traders. Are you our next trader?
And looking at the chart setup, let's just start with the Euro Aussie, which was the best performer today. Price action was a lot bullish. Here we see a breakdown here. So far, the price action looks pretty weak. On a daily chart, this is a substantial move that we are seeing on the daily. But we are right at the moving average here. We can either go either way. Again, after a big move like this today, we could expect some consolidation. But again, I think this could accelerate if the CPI number comes out in favor for the Aussie. But like I said, I will take the other side here. Again, we're not seeing the CPI numbers coming out explosive, moving the currency one way or the other. So we could expect the Aussie to pull back a little bit. So if that's the case, I think we can take a look at the second best currency, would be the Kiwi. You can see that the Aussie Kiwi, and this is why it's important to pay attention to these economic numbers. I mean, we were seeing the Aussie being really weak and Kiwi was really strong until we got the CPI number. And you can see that right there, the trend changed. So here we are, right at the resistance. And the big question is that, should I go with the Aussie or the Kiwi? So right now, the Aussie still looks pretty strong, but I will be paying attention to this pair as we go into the Aussie CPI. Because if this rolls over from here, then we need to shift our focus into another currency, and that would be the Kiwi. And if that's the case, we can take a look at Euro Kiwi. Let's take a look at the currency pair. As you can see that the Euro Kiwi still has room for this to drop. Again, after a big rally here, I think there's a further room here. So looking at a 4-hour chart, just rolling over. So I think we can start hunting in these areas. So all the setups for tonight will be around the Aussie pairs. And in that case, Aussie Kiwi goes on the top of the list. We'll be taking a look at the Euro Kiwi. Euro Aussie, and we can also take a look at the Swiss franc pairs as well. I mean, today was a big divergence between the euro and the Swiss franc, but if the Swiss franc catches up, I mean, we can take a look at Aussie Swiss franc, which again on a 4-hour chart looks like it's trying to rally a little bit here, but not that strong price action. But take a look at the daily chart. This is where it looks interesting. It almost got back to the previous support, and that's really where it's bouncing from. Now let's take a look at the Kiwi Swiss franc. As you can see, Kiwi Swiss franc is right at the support area right here. So at this point, risk to reward ratio looks actually more favorable for some of these pairs. It's a matter of being in the right currency pair at the right time. Now let's shift our focus to the CAD. So tomorrow we have the Canadian Bank of Canada rate statement. So again, not expecting to raise rates. Let's see what the price action is telling us. So right here in the price action on the daily chart on the Canadian dollar basket, we broke out higher, we went lower, made a bear rally, and we are right at the support. So I think at this point, CAD looks like a weaker setup to me. Again, not looking for our opinion, but looking for what the price is telling us. So we have a support right here. If this breaks the support area, I'll be actively taking a look at some of the Canadian dollar pairs. And if that's the case, then we can, look at currency pairs like can the Kiwi CAD bounce up from here? Does the Aussie CAD continue to reverse from here? Take a look at the Aussie CAD pairing here. We got the resistance right here. So these are the setups that looks actually decent here. Taking a look at dollar CAD as well, you can see the dollar CAD is looking like it wants to break out higher. We have a good resistance level at about 138.32. A break above that would actually be more favorable to the upside. And I think, as I've mentioned that before, dollar looks tricky because every time it looks like dollar wants to break lower, guess what happens? The buyers come in. This is again telling us that the dollar is still looking good on the upside than it does look the downside. We had a big drop today in the Euro USD. You can see on a daily chart, we touched that little resistance and rolled back pretty quickly here. So as you can see on an hourly to 4-hour chart, we are sitting at the lows of the day. I'd expect some sort of consolidation pattern, so maybe some bear rally, and then looking for an entry based off of that. So again, that will be a setup that we can take a look at in the European session, but I'm pretty clear on what I'm looking at in the next 24 hours. As we go in the Asian markets, Aussie pairs, European markets, we take a look at Euro and the pound. And as we go into the US session, we take a look at the Canadian dollar and even the US dollar, wherever the move is. So that's a game plan. That's a game plan for next 24 hours. So make sure you're following your plan. Make sure you're sticking to your trading plan as you set it out for the week. Thanks everyone for joining. Happy trading. See you in the next update.